name is Dustin, and this is the relation between consumers and food choice. All of us here have been to grocery stores, right? You went and you probably know what you want to buy. Or you're just there roaming around, but eventually, most of the time you come out with something in your hands, right? Like a box of eggs or a bag of chips. But why do you choose to buy such things? That's what my research is aiming to answer. To recap, my research question is, based on what set of values do consumers in the U.S. select which food/drinks they purchase, and which factor do they value the most? My literature review focused around 6 main factors: cost, taste, health, convenience, outside conditions, and gender. Cost, according to Taylor, a PhD candidate, and V.S. Boas, a professor specializing in agricultural economics, consumers are willing to go to great extents in pursuit of a better price, such as traveling farther distance to get such prices. Taste, according to Oshman Witzel, an academic in the field of consumer relations, and Ham, a professor and head of the Department of Agricultural and Food Marketing at the University of Kassel, found in their research that the majority of the participants valued taste over every other factor that they mentioned in their research, indicating the high value of taste in consumer choice. Health, Huner and their team of researchers, experts in the agricultural and business fields, found health to be the #1 reason behind the purchase of organic foods, indicating that concerns for health do in fact influence consumer choice. Convenience, Rakowski, Joe, and Carlson, authors for the USDA, or U.S. Department of Agriculture, found convenience to be one of the factors behind the purchase of fast foods and convenience foods. And that also indicates that convenience is a factor in consumer choice. For outside conditions and genders, they aren't really direct factors on consumer choice. They're more correlations, because the consumer can't really control that, because they just happen. So it was found by Veron and Wang, researchers for the Department of Health at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, that women tended to show more care to their health than men did. And Ellison et al., a group of agricultural experts, found that during the COVID pandemic, people tended to buy more foods with higher shelf lives. No correlation has been found between the factors that this research is studying in particular, although there have been studies that are similar, such as Oshman-Witzel's. Why should you care? This research can possibly aid in the production of more accommodating products for all consumers, like foods with lower prices if you're on a lower budget, or tastier foods that pertain more to your own taste buds. Methods. I first did a survey, and then, if willing, I would interview them. I gathered 138 participants in my survey, and reached my goal of 100. However, for the interviews, I reached my goal of 25 participants with 27 participants. But I've only interviewed 2 thus far, although I've contacted 10 in total. However, not many responded. Goals and limitations. The goal of this research is to observe consumer behavior and use that understanding to possibly improve the shopping experience of consumers. And the limitations are time and validity. Time being not enough time to gather all this evidence, and validity being the truthfulness of the data gathered by my survey, or the answers that I gathered. However, by gathering a lot of surveys and a lot of data, I can kind of mitigate the effects of these limitations. Next up is the preliminary data that I've gathered thus far. The first question I asked in my survey was, what gender are you? This question by itself doesn't pose much of a, doesn't really affect my research at all, but if connected with other responses, it helps the understanding of my research greatly. As you can see, it's basically a 50-50 split between females and males. The second question I asked was, would you rather pay more for something that tastes better or buy the cheaper, less tasty option? I asked this to see whether they valued cost over taste or vice versa. For males, you can see that 81.9% decided to pay more and 18.1% decided to pay less. However, with females, less females wanted to pay less and more females wanted to pay more for taste, indicating that there's a higher, taste is of higher value than cost is. How concerned are you about the health content of the food or drinks that you buy? Males, the values you see 0 through 3 can be identified as little to no concern, 4 to 6 as a medium concern, not really concerned but not really concerned but not very concerned, and 7 to 10 can be identified as very concerned. As you can see, it's pretty even. It's a pretty even between females and males. And of the participants I interviewed, the ones that answered 4 to 6 had different answers depending on the value that they chose. The person that chose 4 didn't really care as much due to their higher metabolism. However, the person that chose 6 showed a lot more concern as they purchased less junk food and purchased more healthier foods to be healthier. However, the person that answered 4 purchased more junk foods. The next question I asked was, are you in a rush? This was to funnel out the people who would value convenience more than the others. And as you can see, females were more in a rush than males were. The follow-up question, if they answered yes to the previous question, was, if so, do you think it affects the foods / drinks that you tend to buy? As you can see, females and males that answered 7 to 10, their results were pretty even. However, males thought it didn't affect them as much as females did. And the participants that did answer that it didn't affect them as much said that they ate and bought and purchased more processed foods. Next question is, how much do you think COVID affected your shopping choices? And this question was asked to identify what outside conditions would affect and whether they have correlation or not to the other factors. As you can see, it's pretty even between the males and the females. However, females tended to think that it had more effect on their choices. The next question is, how willing would you be to spend more on the healthier alternative of things? It's pretty even. However, the participants that I interviewed, they said that the ones that answered 0 to 3 stated that they didn't purchase the healthier alternative of things because they tended to taste worse than the originals. And the last question I asked was, which among these choices do you think you look for the most in the foods / drinks that you buy? As you can see, taste is the overwhelming majority of all the answers. And the participants that I interviewed that replied taste said that they just wanted to enjoy what they bought and they wanted to get the most bang for their buck. My conclusion was taste was the most value factor in my research. Cost was the second most, health was the third, convenience was the last. And the differences between genders were pretty negligible, not very significant. However, there were some questions where females and males were pretty different. And outside conditions were perceived differently by each person. Some people, it was pretty even among them. Some people didn't think it affected them that much. However, others thought they were very greatly affected. And this is my bibliography.